And I'm going to display the screen, the slides.
I don't know if you're building anticipation, but we can't see the slides yet.
While Jeffrey is doing that, I wanted to mention to everyone that if you have any questions, please feel free to use chat to add your questions, and we will monitor the chat, and Kevin is going to answer all your questions.
Apologize, give me 1 second.
Jeff, under participants, look for anyone can share. Do you see it now?
No.
Okay. All right, apologies, folks. I'll take it from here.
May I share?
Yes. Yeah. If you want to, yes. Please.
Oh, but I can't. I don't have. I'm not presenter. I can make myself presenter and share.
So I have Kevin's.
Okay. Do you see my slides, everyone?
Sure do.
Yes.
Very good. So I promise I go fast. And my name is Shamsi Musavi. I am a faculty at MassBay Community College, and I teach computer science and cybersecurity courses. The cybersecurity program was developed, implemented as a stackable program, which starts with a very short certificate, only 16 credits, with introductory basic courses for cybersecurity that is mainly scripting and networking and the fundamentals of cybersecurity. However, with such short list of courses, it offers the students a lot of knowledge and skills and ability that they will be able to sit for different certifications, such as Security Plus, CompTIA Security Plus certification. The next level of certificate, the second part that you see here, only adds 3 more courses, very specific to security, and very important introductory course to operating system. OS stands for operating system. And of course, these certificates are developed because we had a lot of inquiry about programs for those who already have a bachelor degree or associate degree, but they were interested in getting into cybersecurity program. So those certificates are mostly for those category of students. However, students who register major in cybersecurity associate degree, the last piece in the stackable program, can actually obtain one or two of the certificates while they are working on their associate degree. which has these extra courses plus the general education courses. So the stackable program was created based on standards for cybersecurity education that are the standards for these kind of education that came from an initiative called NICE, as you can see here, developed by NIST, National Institute of Standards and Technology. They came up with the NICE framework, and this basically guarantees that students learn all they need to learn in order to become skilled and knowledgeable in cybersecurity and hireable. So, as I mentioned, we also prepare students for Cisco and CompTIA certifications. We have been offering cybersecurity programs, actually the associate degree since 2015, but the certificates even before that. And our MassBay's associate degree in cybersecurity was and still is the only associate degree in cybersecurity specifically approved by Department of Higher Education in Massachusetts. The program is also approved by Department of Veterans Affairs. We provide students with lots of opportunities, not just taking courses. We have a cybersecurity club, and students right now, actually, this weekend, they are going to participate in the final round of a national cyber league competition. And they have been busy practicing and learning and communicating with each other to participate in the competition. This is a national competition. It's not an easy competition. And in the past, students have earned the first, second, and third place in the competition. So the other opportunities are working on projects, like this student worked on a project and actually won the poster award at the state level. And other students, these are students who became first in National Cyber League competition. We also have students working on projects, because one of the last courses they take is the capstone course, where they can work on a project that involves everything they have learned throughout their cybersecurity program. We also have, for current students, 2 cybersecurity specific scholarship. MassBay has a lot of scholarships, as you can see in this page, but there are 2 very specific cybersecurity scholarships that students can apply for. I went through all this very, very quickly because I don't want to take up too much time from Kevin's presentation, but you have my email address here. Please contact me if you have any questions. I am going to now stop sharing and introduce our Dean speaker. Mr. Kevin Burns is the Draper's Lab Chief Information Security Officer and is currently responsible for information security throughout the enterprise, as well as compliance, incident response, and security architecture. Mr. Burns previously worked for the Commonwealth, Massachusetts for 22 years, and that is where we met, not 22 years ago, but that's where we met. And from 2012 to 2016, held the position of CISO within the Executive Office of Administration and Finance. During his tenure at the Commonwealth, Mr. Burns was responsible for ensuring the security and confidentiality, the words that every cybersecurity students repeatedly hears or reads, of the Commonwealth constituents' data and private information, as well as ensuring that executive branch agencies adhere to federal, state, and local compliance regulation. Mr. Burns came to Commonwealth from private sector in financial management positions and hazardous waste industry, as well as worked for ADP implementing financial and accounting applications throughout New England. Mr. Burns is also a peer faculty as an adjunct professor at Boston College, teaching a course on incident response, and has been guest lecturer at Northeastern University and many times at MassBay, and he has been lecturer and panelist for many cyber-related events other than MassBay, and involved in developing and consulting regarding cyber-related course material for MassBay. So we are very pleased, very honored to have Mr. Burns as our speaker. Please.
Kevin, you're muted.
Kevin, you're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, sir. You're good to go.
Okay, great. Thank you. Fantastic. So I really appreciate the introduction. And while I'm sort of doing a little bit of an introduction, if you could just, someone could grab the slide deck and fire that up, that'd be fantastic. But just a little brief thing too, right? So I grew up in Malden, Massachusetts, right? We were a blue collar family. We all commuted to college. You know, I was not, you know, we didn't all go to some, you know, live at some private school, and I wasn't a computer science major, right? So I was an accounting major, there we go. Thank you so much. And we got, you know, I got into this, it just happened over time. I didn't like accounting. I went to ADP and I realized I could teach people how to use accounting systems, and got into a little bit of software development with digital and helped set up hardware. And then the state needed someone who could rebuild their database. And I just learned that from taking some courses on Paradox and Access, right? So my point is you don't have to go to a 4-year school right off the bat and have a major in computer science to get into this field. As a matter of fact, if you go to the next slide, that'd be great. Perfect, right? So I want you to take a notice, if you would please, the very bottom sentence. Salaries are great. I have 2 staff that make over $100,000 a year right now from community college only. One of them came from Shamsi's organization, and I've hired other interns from MassBay. So what Shamsi and the folks at MassBay have done is remarkable. I can't say it enough, and I don't mind embarrassing her or the other great folks from MassBay on this call, right? They have put together a program that other community colleges are dying to imitate, but for whatever reason can't. And that has a lot to do with Shamsi's leadership and the folks she works with and the other great folks at MassBay. They're doing amazing, remarkable work, and the proof's in the pudding, right? They've won some of these cyber events that Shamsi just mentioned. They're creating great cyber professionals. Again, you don't have to have a 4-year degree, and you shouldn't think about a 4-year degree, because some of the most talented people I've ever hired came out of community college, and they were just passionate about cyber. That's what you need in this industry. I want to just kick that off, right? You have to really start to get into it and be passionate about it, right? And I know the first sentence here is, what is cyber, right? I think many of you folks on this call know what cybersecurity is, right? But there's so many different facets of it, right? There's so many different parts of it that you can do. You can be a forensic investigator to see what someone did on their computer, right? What they did on their hard drive. You look at their browsing history. You look at some of the changes that they've done to the computer's operating system. Or as Shamsi pointed out, she showed you some of those courses. You can be someone who specializes on the perimeter security, how the firewalls are set up, and what some of the other security stacks are set up, right? And this is really exciting stuff because it changes every day. You can see my slide here that talks about 200,000 new viruses created every day. I think that's old now. I think it's more than that, right? There are so many different kinds of attackers out there constantly banging away at different kinds of systems to try and get the information or shut them down, right? I'll talk a little bit in a minute about ransomware, but you know, as you can see the next sentence, what would happen if cyber attackers shut down all the power grids? This is not a movie. This is what several nation states have done research on to be able to do in the event that there is a war between us and their countries. And cyber warfare is actually now a recognized Department of Defense type of warfare, cyber warfare. So cybersecurity is just really exciting as can be. That's why I'm so passionate about it, right? And I'm going to talk about some other things as we get through this slide deck, but I do want you to, if you're interested at all in cybersecurity, what you can do to do some reading is if you just go into Google and type in top security blogs, cybersecurity blogs I should be reading, you will see a bunch of different cybersecurity blogs come up. And you can check those daily, weekly, every other day, creds on security, dark reading. There's just so many great cybersecurity information out there, and it's fascinating stuff, right? They keep coming up with brand new vulnerabilities. You know, maybe some of you heard about the SolarWinds vulnerability, right? That was set up that 300,000 different, I don't know, is it that much? It's in the tens of thousands of companies were using SolarWinds to monitor their networks. Well, the attackers found a way that there was a vulnerability in there, and they were able to exfiltrate all sorts of data by creating accounts once they got in, right? And we are talking about federal agencies that were affected, Department of Defense agencies that were affected, right? So, yeah, I just saw Shamsi also said, please feel free to add questions. Don't hesitate to reach out and add questions, please, please. I want this to be a conversation, not just me babbling for the next few minutes, right? I think that would be boring for everybody. So don't hesitate to ask questions. But, you know, I have right in here, what are some of the ways that hackers get other people's money? Well, I'm sure so many of you have already had your credit cards hacked, right? You might have had your Facebook accounts hacked. You might have had your Instagrams. Who knows, right? But ransomware is turning out to be a really great business model for very bad people, right? Over in Eastern Europe is where a lot of it comes from. And all it takes is they'll send out an email. Sure, fake website. That's a great question. I'm gonna answer that in 1 second. You know what? I'm gonna answer that now. So a fake website, right? So they set up a website that looks just like a Visa site. Looks just like it. You'd have trouble telling the difference. And they will work their way into web searches. So when you type in Visa, MasterCard, one of those might be a fake. I call it a fake website, but it's a website that someone set up with maybe one letter difference or two letter difference from actually visa.com. And you start entering information in there, right? And so, or you start entering, say you want to buy something, right? You go into a website that you think is Amazon, sorry, not Amazon, that's not a great one, but some other website that you think, I'm into boats, right? So into marine supplies or things for my boat. It could be a website that has one letter difference from West Marine. And I click on that and I start entering credit card data because I think I'm buying a part for my boat. When actually I'm buying a part, I'm giving them my credit card information and it's going to a website that is not affiliated with West Marine. So that's a great question. That's why you have to be really careful when you're shopping online, right? I can't say enough. Don't use your debit card if you can help it. Use a credit card, because your credit card companies are used to fraud on a daily basis. When you're using your debit card, if you're using your debit card with your bank account information, do you really want all that out there? So great question. I appreciate that. And please keep them coming, right? But ransomware, the way ransomware happens, simply people, they flood different places, MassBay.com or .edu or Draper.com with what looks like a legitimate email, right? It might say healthcare alert. Your healthcare account is currently under review. Please click on this link. Well, what it does is you click on that link and it puts an encryption virus on your files on your computer, and you'll see it come up and it will say your computer's been locked up with an encryption file. You need to send $60,000 in Bitcoin to this site or you will not be able to unlock your files. And it's become a huge problem for businesses. I'm sure many of you have already done some research on it, right? But if you just Google ransomware, current ransomware attacks, you'll see hospitals have been locked up. Police stations have been locked up. Counties, cities, hospitals, all have been affected by ransomware. And so it's been a huge, great business opportunity for nefarious or bad organizations in Eastern Europe because they simply don't get prosecuted for it. So I'll toss this out there. You say to yourself, well, how do you defend against something like ransomware? How can you do that, right? You would think that my spam filters or on my email filters in a company would prevent that from happening in a company. Well, sure, but even if your company only lets in, say I'm making it up, say MassBay Community College only lets in 6% of all the email that's sent at it, right? That it's spam filter and email filter stops the rest of those files. Once in a while, a bad email gets through that has ransomware in it. Okay, then, So what's a preventative measure once that gets through? Training. And that's another piece of the cybersecurity that I wanted to talk about, right? You might get into cybersecurity training. So you might get into, you might learn how to set up fake spear phishing accounts, campaigns, right? Not fake, but actual spear phishing campaigns at your company or your organization so that you train people not to click on those. And if they click on an attachment they shouldn't, it takes them to a quick video that says, you've been phished. That, PHISHED. And then those people have to take a quick video and they go, and they put their head down and they go, oh, I wish I never did that, right? But that's the main way to protect against ransomware. But if ransomware does permeate an organization, unless that organization has good backups that they can go out and get that were unaffected by this spear phishing campaign and reload those, usually losing a week or two of work. But if they don't have those, they're in deep trouble, right? And ransomware is devastating. As I said, I wanted to cover a little bit of this in the beginning opening of this conversation, right? But again, the salaries are great. Two of these people that I mentioned, Shamsi knows one of them. He came from your program and he worked for me at Draper, and then he did so well that he actually stayed at Draper, but he's working now. He has a top secret clearance, and he's doing security work in the top secret spaces, right, in the closed rooms for Draper. So, and the other guy who came from a Springfield college, technical college, community college, he runs my security operations center, and he worked with me at the state. And I stole him and I brought him, just like I brought John, the other guy who came from Shamsi's program, right? So these folks are doing really, really well. You just have to be passionate. You just have to be passionate about this and start to get into some of the technical details. So I wanted to take a little break here. Does anyone have any questions about whatever I've talked about so far? Comments, anything, before we move on to the next slide?
So I do have a question actually. So let's say that you go to the mall. Well, this happened to me, and your cell phone, you don't have any signal. You're having a struggle trying to get in. Let's say to your bank account. And you say, okay, I have to use the Wi-Fi or any store. I mean, it kind of worried me a lot. Say, okay, I'm gonna put myself on risk, get myself to another Wi-Fi. How can I know that the Wi-Fi of that place is authentic or it's not authentic? Did I get? I mean, putting myself on a lot of risk. How can I feel, or what can I do to avoid any problem to get hacked by somebody outside?
Yeah, it's a great point, right? So you should look first for that HTTPS, right? When you're first looking and you see up there in what the Wi-Fi settings are, you'll see either HTTP or HTTPS, and the S stands for secure connection, right? So HTTPS is is something you can look for when you're using those Wi-Fis. But I have to tell you, those Wi-Fis are really, 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 really dangerous, right? They're those public Wi-Fis like Starbucks, like the mall, like the airports. They're very, very dangerous to use. You're right. Sometimes the cell phone signals are horrible, but I won't use any of those open Wi-Fis at hotels or Starbucks or the airports because there's literally attackers waiting for people to get in
Exactly.
there and grab. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's something that you're like, oh my God, like I have no choice, but it's something that, I will keep asking myself recently, like, what can we do? It's like they're forcing you to use the Wi-Fi. It's kind of like they're really forcing you, okay, you have to log into a certain Wi-Fi. And it's kind of like, you're like, okay, you are putting me at risk at the moment.
Yep. They are. One thing you can do when you see, there's some great questions here, and I really appreciate them. When you're at the airport, right, and you use those charging stations, I like that. Max Pacheco says use personal VPN. Great suggestion, right? A personal VPN is fantastic suggestion. But when you're at the airport, before you stick your charging block into a charging station at the airport, there's a little device that you can use. I'm going to see if I might have one right here. So I step away for a second. See if I can get it to show you. Yep. So this little device here, I know it's hard to see, right? But it's actually a blocker. So when I charge my device at the airport or anywhere else, right? This is an actual data block smart charge. And so I see that my router has a VPN option. So these kind of things at the airport, when you're going to charge anywhere publicly, get one of these little things here. Sorry about the camera.
Kevin, my apologies. We can't see you because we're presenting. If you really wish to share what you're presenting, we have to stop the presentation temporarily.
Okay? No, forget it, right? You can Google it, right? You can Google data blockers, right? No problem, right? So I see some of the questions. I saw some of the questions. I saw the private VPN was a great suggestion. Yeah. What are some of the other? Okay, here we go. Is there a book you like every cybersecurity beginner to read? I would actually I'd tell you first, what, I would say no. I would say that what you could do, right, is go out to those security blogs, right? Go, Krebs on Security, Brian Krebs, great, right? Dark reading, right? There's some great security blogs. Start reading those security blogs, right? Because they're written so that many people can understand them, right? They're not technical in nature until you get really down in the weeds. So, before you go out and get Cybersecurity for Dummies, which is that is not a bad series, right? When I first started getting into technical things, and I wasn't a technical guy, I was a finance guy, I got Networking for Dummies, right? So, those are not bad books. I think Shamsi could also give you some thoughts on some informational reading, but those information security blogs, if you just type in top 10 information security blogs I should be reading, you will see some great websites. Just start reading those, and a lot of it will start to make sense to you because they're written in English, right? And sure, there are some things where they get down in the weeds about how the hack actually happened, but I would state jump into those so I can see My router has a VPN option, so I can essentially pipe everything back to it. You bet. What are the ways we can find employment in this field, especially if we don't have any internship experience, right? And so that is absolutely some of the trouble. But so here's what you should be applying to any help desk, IT help desk job you possibly can. Go out and find an IT help desk job if you can, just answering phones. Because what's going to happen is you're going to get exposed to a lot of how to help people, but you're also going to find and learn a lot about how information security works and what the security controls are on Windows PCs, on Macs, on Linux systems, right? So take a look at help desk jobs. Go take one of those. Sure, some of those can be second or third shift, but it's a great introduction to cybersecurity. A guy I hired out of college, he's done very, very well, but he was on the help desk at his college, and that just gives you a really good technical background, and you'll learn all sorts of things about cybersecurity. Do you need a pass clearance to work in cybersecurity? What about a draper? Most places don't need a clearance. Where you find you need clearances is places like Raytheon. One of the things you want to do is the ability to get a clearance in some of those Department of Defense places, right? But you don't need clearances. It's only in the defense communities like Raytheon, MIT, Lincoln Labs, those sort of places that do defense work, right? So just keep that in mind. Does a VPN provide adequate protection on the public open access Wi-Fi? A private VPN is pretty good. Again, I would say don't use the public access Wi-Fi. Use your phone. Use the data minutes. I don't use open Wi-Fi. Professor Elliston says the field of cybersecurity is changing all the time. Should cybersecurity assume they will need to stay on top of professional? Absolutely, right? There's all sorts of things. Professional development wise, and there's a great question. I appreciate that, Professor Ray. There's things like ISACA, ISACA. You can join that for about $130, and then you can go to all the ISACA meetings, and it's all about information security sharing right throughout New England. And they have meetings, and that's another way you can find a job. You'll meet some great people. You get to do some great networking. Those ISACA meetings are spectacular, right? So those sorts of things, right? ISC Squared is another one. They have a lot of the exams. So does ISACA. You join those places, and that's how to get some great professional development going forward, right? From Hillary, we heard about proactive and secure password information. Could there have been more teams that have? Yes, selling data. What current technology strategies companies are used to protect? Great question from Hillary. So Hillary, what companies are doing now is multi-factor authentication, right? And I'm actually talking about smart cards that slide into PCs. That's what companies are doing these days, right? Passwords, it's very hard for hackers to be able to get in without that hard card, right? I know a lot of websites now will give you a soft token where they can send a code to your phone, so you put that in. That's very helpful. But having a token, right? A Duo token. You could look up Duo later. DUO. That there are lots of different tokens that can go into PCs as a multi-factor authentication. That really, they're a great. It's almost like a panacea. Multi-factor authentication is the way to go. Okay. What is the format and teaching style these classes are going to be taught in? Well, that I have to defer to my friend Shamsi, right? The way I teach my class at Boston College and Incident Response is their conversations. What would you do if there was a big breach at your company, right? So the way I teach is I teach conversational stuff. As you can tell, it's hard to shut me up, right? So
may I jump in for a second?
Please.
Only
Please.
just to say we are going to have an advising event for cybersecurity program on next Wednesday, and a week from tomorrow. And that would be a good place to ask these kind of questions. This is for MassBay students. If you're not MassBay students, I will put my MassBay email address. Please ask me. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
No, real. I appreciate your interrupting. That's great. Thank you so much. Good stuff. Another follow-up from Hillary. What about A+ Network Plus Security? Absolutely. Security Plus is a great certification. Those A+ Network CompTIA, those are great certifications, Hillary. They really help. As a matter of fact, at Draper, we sort of force our folks to get that Security Plus certificates, within about a year or two after they join my staff. So those are great certifications, and they really do help. And you can study on your own, and there are study sites that you can study with other people. Great stuff. Yep, absolutely. Why is public Wi-Fi, I think, offered if it's such a security issue? Well, people like ease of use and convenience, right? Let's be honest. The United States is all about how fast, how quickly we can get things, right? From fast food to fast service to Amazon next day. The public is impatient. Everything is instantaneous. So, it gets offered on planes. It gets offered in hotels. It gets offered in public settings. And it's very, very dangerous. From Joan, I work at an agency that's currently dealing with a ransomware attack. We've been accessing the network remotely. Is my personal information on my home system at risk as a ransomware attack happens on my job's network? So great question, Joan. I would say it depends upon how you're coming in from your home system. If you're coming in on the company's VPN network, and if you're using that helps. But if your personal information, if you're accessing your company's network on your
yeah, I know Kevin
what?
says this is how he likes to teach, but I think I will.
Nope. Sorry, so there's a little background there. If you're using your personal computer and attaching to the network using your personal computer, there's a little bit of risk. Now, ransomware, it depends on what kind, right? It doesn't necessarily jump machines, right? Sometimes it has to be done manually by the attackers. So one thing I would say is all the passwords at your company should be changed immediately, right? For certain, because if the ransomware attackers are able to create new accounts, admin accounts with admin rights and privileges, like IT people, you've got a bit of a risk. So there is a bit of a risk, but if you change your password immediately, and if your company has been able to ascertain where the ransomware and the type, then you can find out how much the risk is. If companies are using the phishing attack that Brent Stafford can't this just open the door for hackers to advance their skill because now they know what we are looking for. Sure, I think to some degree, Denora, right? But if you teach your staff over time to not open it, to not ever click on that, then what happens is your staff will never click on those, and then the ransomware can't actually be installed. But you're right. You're 100% right. Hackers are constantly improving their skill sets, right? So the hackers are constantly training and learning and getting better, right? They're fully financed, and that's all they do from their work, right? So the VPN piece, right? VPN is actually a secure tunnel that gets set up right between your system and the system at work. So it's a secure tunnel, right? It doesn't spoof necessarily. It's more about having a secure communication set up between your machine and your company's machine, right? So VPNs, virtual private networks, are very, very secure. Really, yep.
I was going to say, Kevin, this is Elaine, and we just wondered if maybe you wanted to move on with your next slide, and we'll grab those questions as they come.
I did, yes. I was just thinking that. That'd be great. Next slide would be awesome. Perfect. Perfect. Yep, next slide would be great. Okay, here it is. Nope. One more. I need one more advance on the slide. There we go. Okay. I can buzz through this fairly quickly, right? And then we can move on to the slide after that. But there really is negative unemployment in cybersecurity, right? Cisco indicated a couple of years ago there would be 1 million unfilled cybersecurity jobs by the end of this year, right? And so it's really important to work with people like Shamsi and MassBay Community College and get some of those technical skills down through her program and practice your technical skills, because the technical folks are really in demand, right? You can start out with the certificate program, right? But, you know, I am a huge fan of MassBay Community College. So, you know, and Shamsi and the crew have done a really good job. And the proof's in the pudding from, you know, some of the events they've won. But again, there's so many types of jobs that we talked about. Oh, yeah, in the past, right? So, you know, investigation forensics I talked about, but ethical hacking, right? Learning how to become a penetration tester, which is the next thing down, right? But learning how to do ethical hacking that's approved by the company so that you can penetration test your company and see if they can get in. And it's really important all companies bring in independent penetration testers and ethical hackers to test the how good the systems are, how good the controls are, right? You know, how good the intrusion prevention system is, how good the intrusion detection system is, right? How good is your email filtering and spam folders? How good is your malware defense? Not just your McAfee's and your antivirus, but things like FireEye that actually will intercept malware and bring it to a sandbox, look at it, and detonate it, right? So there's so many jobs, and I'm just touching some of the things here, right? So from Angelina, what do you advise someone who doesn't know which path in cybersecurity to choose, right? So take a look at those information security blogs that I mentioned earlier, and when you're reading those, if something that jumps out at you that really interests you, right, then start to do some research about what that incident was all about. Say it's you know, penetration testing, trying to break into a network, getting paid to do it, right? Maybe you want to be the monitoring network for attackers, right? Maybe you are part of the security operations center. Maybe you want to do some training doing spear phishing campaigns. Maybe you want to be an investigator. I loved investigating. That was a fantastic job for me. I loved investigating. Maybe you want to be part of that team that does investigations to see if someone, I'll give you an example, which is sort of fun, right? Someone starts doing strange things at night on their computer, right? They start downloading files that they never downloaded before. They start going after files that they don't have to work with. What are they doing? Well, maybe they're going to take those and go to another company. Maybe they're going to take those and go to another country, right? Happens all the time. Cyber espionage, nation state espionage, right? So read those blogs, and when something jumps off the page, and you can Google some of what I just listed here, right? I'm assuming you're making these slides available for these folks, right? So please feel free to make the slides available to all the folks who called in tonight, and the folks who are interested. Please feel free to make the slides available, because then you can go out and do some research. You know, what does a forensic investigator do? What is ethical hacking all about? What about penetration testing, right? So start to do some research in the various fields, and then when something leaps out at you, and like I said, it was investigations for me. I loved investigating. That was so much fun, right? I think that's a good spot. We can keep moving to the next slide.
May I say something very quickly to continue your answer? The associate degree has a course, a final course called Capstone, where students have option to do internship for that course. That is, in my view, the best way to realize or learn what you like to do, what path within cybersecurity you like to follow. So look for that and talk to me if you have questions. Sorry.
No, don't be sorry. Listen, I can't, if you haven't figured it out by now, I'm a huge Shamsi fan, right? I'm a huge Shamsi fan, and I'm a huge fan of MassBay, right? They do it as well as anybody in this country, right, with the program and certificate, right? They've got it nailed. They really do. They've got this, and so Shamsi is 100% on point. You know, I can't say enough about the program. Can't tell them I'm a huge fan. So you should be looking at this particular program because I think it's spectacular. And so what about other information technology, right? We talked about this a little. This is what it's sort of good about not usually stuck behind a desk all day, right? What I mean by that is when we get back to sort of normal, what normal looks like, right? You'll be part of meetings and a part of calls and part of campaigns and penetration testing and projects that will get you out from behind the desk and get you interacting with systems. And it's very exciting, right? Where you're talking to all sorts of different people. You get to talk to some very senior leadership and get to be known and respected. Most cybersecurity professionals with a technical background who become comfortable talking to senior leadership will have a very great, rewarding, long career. That I can promise you, right? We talked about this a little bit, right? Various types of work allows for growth and focus on skill sets. I think the professor mentioned that earlier. And I already talked about working at a help desk, right? Customer service skills, right? If you can't break into cybersecurity, right, break into any other information technology job that you can find, and then you can usually find a way to work yourself in cybersecurity. So that's just something I wanted to toss out there, right? So if we could go to the next slide, that'd be great. And I'll do the same on my end. Okay, getting started, right? I'm going to spend a little bit of time on this because I think a lot of you are wondering about how to get started. Okay, I say to get started, talk to Shamsi, right? Then I say, take a computer class or information security class. Talk to Shamsi. So then I interview someone, right, who works in IT or cybersecurity, as you folks are doing now, right? You're getting a chance to sort of trade some thoughts and ideas with me, right? Again, this just sort of happened to me. I wasn't planning on it. I was an accounting guy, right, which bored me to tears. And so then I started doing a little bit of technology stuff, and I got to the state in Massachusetts, and the Department of Revenue was looking for someone who could work with systems a little bit, who had some IT skills, because the investigators didn't have those skills. So I came on board and I built a database out of Paradox and Access, and it wasn't hard. I promise you, anybody could do it, right? It's not that hard. And they kept me on, and I stayed there for 13 years doing investigations, which mostly revolved around people using the state's computer systems for things they shouldn't be using it for, right? Looking up people's salaries, finding out where their ex-boyfriend or girlfriends or ex-wives or ex-husbands worked. It was really fun. And so these kind of things can happen. And then from there, I wanted to go run an investigative unit. So I went to the employment office where I ran an investigative unit, but the feds were giving out a whole bunch of funding for information security, millions of dollars if you could write a grant. And Shamsi knows all about writing grants. And so we were getting money to shore up our information security. I see this. Let me see if I can go back up to some of the questions, because I only have one slide left. So, okay. Is it hard to identify individual attackers versus bot networks? Great question. It really is hard to identify individual attackers, right? As a matter of fact, often we won't spend a lot of time trying to find out who was doing the attack, because it usually is over in country that does not have an extradition with the United States. And so we don't spend a ton of time trying to identify the attackers. Attribution is what it's called. It's not quite a waste of time because sometimes those types of attacks use these various types of techniques, but we don't spend a lot of time trying to identify them. We let the Secret Service and the FBI go after them, NSA maybe. And that's another thing I just want to mention quick. And I see this thing from Ethan, which I'll get into, I promise, real quick. But take a look at the US CERT website, USCERT, right? It's a spectacular website on cybersecurity. It's got all sorts of work from the FBI and Department of Homeland Security, right? Learn what the FBI is doing with cyber. Learn what the Department of Homeland Security is doing with cyber. It's really exciting stuff. A dear friend of mine is in the Department of Homeland Security, and she helps us all the time. Get to know what they're doing because they have great jobs out there. Recently, Google exposed multiple vulnerabilities for performing a CT operation. Can you comment on ethical tension between security companies that disclose a patch? Yeah. There is absolutely ethical tension between companies to disclose a patch relative to companies that don't want to talk about it. But let me say this: there's a great point, Ethan. Very important though. The sooner you disclose the incident, the sooner you tell your customers, the sooner you bounce back. You should almost have daily briefings about these things, and there is absolutely a tension, right? And then it says not every country has the robust vulnerabilities, equities, absolutely, right? Should a company like Google disclose vulnerabilities that affect their products? Yeah, I would think they should. As a matter of fact, they will even sometimes pay a bounty for if you find a problem with their code, they'll pay for it if you can show a problem with their code. Also, which is more concerning, SolarWinds or the recent Exchange server-related attacks? Sorry for no. I love the question. We can truly appreciate awesome stuff. I think SolarWinds is more concerning. The Exchange server-related, there were patches and they got patched, right? SolarWinds, they don't even know the extent of it because there are a lot of different companies involved with SolarWinds, and they're not 100% sure of all of its different tentacles or issues. So SolarWinds is way more. There's still people losing their minds over SolarWinds than they should be, right? Including federal companies. From Hillary, white hat, gray hat, black hat, self-description, they're legally binding that corporations use to hire. Yeah, so I wouldn't say they're legally binding. They're absolutely known. They're known as terms within the community as the kind of things that you'll go out and hire to find and use to do penetration testing. So they're absolutely used. Recently, Blackbaud will tell them to find the customer debris for a significant amount of time in the cloud. So the reason that might be a case on the Blackbaud thing is if it's a criminal matter that they think that they might be able to indict somebody, that's typically why, right? If the Secret Service or the FBI or NSA said, no, we might be able to make an arrest on this, then that might have been the reason. It could have been an insider threat, right? Another fun career piece. It could have been an insider threat. Do you recommend paying ransomware to unlock your data? No, and no. Just so everyone knows where I'm coming from. They'll come back at you again. You probably only have a 60 to 70% chance of getting your files back in the right format. There's formatting issues when they ship those back sometimes, those keys. Sometimes the keys don't always work. No, I don't. You're better off. Companies right now should be planning on backup, testing backup, right? That's the only way to do it. I don't recommend it. Great stuff. So the last slide, if we could hit that, this has been fantastic. Great questions. That is the last slide. All right, we're on questions, which 627, we did pretty well here, right? So, and this really went so well because of people jumping in and asking these questions. I can't thank you all enough for some great questions and asks. So anything else I can answer for anybody, the folks at MassBay, the folks on the call, anything else that we haven't covered that people would like to chat about? Okay, I want to thank the folks at MassBay Community College so much.
Kevin,
for
I'm
inviting
sorry.
me.
I did have a question. I'm so sorry. This is Kara
No, it's okay.
Lascola. Hi, I'm a professor here. We've met at the Towerwell Security Conference, actually, when you were still at the state. And all the praise
Hey,
that you've
Kara,
given.
good to see you.
It's good to see you. My video's frozen. That's why you just have my picture. But all the praise that you gave to Shamsi, Tony, everybody who's worked to create the program is well deserved. Everybody. And I know Elaine, with everybody putting this together. So I just want you to know, I now teach cybercrime, which is becoming a required course in this cybersecurity program this fall. My last question for you is, can you just talk in general where you did investigations? The bridge, the connection between the law and understanding some of the applicable laws like the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, because chances are good that if you go into this field, it's going to intersect at some point with law enforcement.
Absolutely. And Kara, I think that's a great course to be teaching and offering, right? Because there is so much cybercrime that can be investigated, that can be attributed, especially in the United States, right? So much interaction necessary with the folks in those investigative agencies, the Fusion Center out in Maynard, right? The people at the Cyber Range, the Boston Brick, right? Which is located, it was located at the Boston headquarters, Boston Police Headquarters. Yep, the Brick, right? And so, yeah, Kara, I might take your class, right? Because I love that stuff. It's so much fun, right?
And it's related. And can I just also praise you as a professor, because I completed the Boston College Law School, the Wood School certificate program in cybersecurity strategy this fall, and you were a guest speaker in one of the courses, and you were amazing. So I just had to put that out there.
Oh, yes.
It's a small world, huh?
Yeah, no, it's a small world. It's a small cyber world, right? And but Kara's class sounds fascinating, right? Again, I might sit in the back, but it's, you know, we so desperately need those relationships with the FBI, with Department of Homeland Security, with the Fusion Center out in Maynard, Mass, which has DHS people, and Massachusetts State Police, with the Boston Brick. Those are folks in the Boston Police Center, right? Because no one can do this work alone. I know I'm running over too. I apologize.
You're fine.
No problem.
Okay, cool. Okay. So no one can do this work alone. Nobody, right? You got some great people at MassBay Community College too on your end of the house, right? Your CIO and CISO, and we all rely upon each other because you can't do this work alone. The attackers are too well funded. They're at us all the time. They're constantly making changes, as you know, right, as professors here. And it's also the fun part, though, right? This field is amazingly exciting and fun, right? It's just spectacular. And you can do so much and pick a field. And if you don't like what you're doing for a while, then change, right? Go do something else in the cyber field, right? But it's a freaking blast. I don't know how else to describe it. I love what I do. I love every day going to work. I love my staff. They're brilliant. And I think you can all find that in the job, right? As opposed to whatever you're thinking of doing, right? There's a ton of great things out there, right, to do. So the cybersecurity and forensics, cybersecurity law overlap a lot, quite a bit, right? And I defer to my friend Kara, right? So I would, you know, that's when I was doing this kind of work, they sure did, right? Just real quick, when the Boston bombers were roaming the streets, I had gotten into work early, so I wasn't sheltering in place. And we realized that the current person who was incarcerated was pinging UMass Dartmouth because he had friends there, right? If you all recall, you went to UMass Dartmouth. He was pinging a router there in one of the dorm rooms. So the folks who directed the UMass security asked me to run the investigation from my office on that connection. And so we had people from the AG's Office of the Cybercrime Unit. We had Department of Homeland Security, FBI. And so they all descended upon the UMass Dartmouth campus. And our engineers of the state found and were able to triangulate on the router that he was pinging. And it was just a router that someone, set up in his room. And they stormed the room, right? and they were about to rip it off the wall. I said, stop, 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 stop. I said, do you know if you have evidentiary? And I'm not an attorney. I said, but before you get permission to rip that off and kill this case, because the engineers also were able to get into the router, and that's how they identified the co-conspirators and hid the backpack, right? So I wasn't in the movie. I was very disappointed about that. I thought Mark Wahlberg should have played me, right? Maybe, who's the other guy? Matt Damon. I just thought, they would have been fine. I didn't make the movie, but they did show those guys storming the room, if you noticed, to get the conspirators. I didn't get the movie, damn it.
You could have been Kevin Bacon, Kevin.
So,
I think he was in that.
He's a little evil looking, right? I don't know. He's looking a little evil these days. City on the Hill, I don't know.
Kevin, could you just speak, since we have so many people interested in different fields, about the fact that there are cyber jobs in every field they can imagine, corporate, hospitals, anything you think you wanted to do, but this is interesting. How would, just to remind people that there isn't universities, there isn't a field anymore that doesn't use cyber.
It's a great point, Elaine. Thank you so much, right? Any industry, any and every industry, right, needs cybersecurity professionals. And so, like you said, pick one. Doesn't matter, right? When I teach the class at Boston College, I assign an industry to a group to write their incident response plan, right? And it can be a startup doing software, so the software doesn't get stolen, their code, right? But a hospital, police stations, municipalities, state governments, county governments. LA County government is bigger than most cities, if not all cities, right? So pick a field. Department of Defense, right? My wife works for a pharmaceutical company, right? They have a huge cybersecurity piece. All those chemical, if those chemical combinations get stolen, they're out of business. Well, not out of business, but they've lost 17 years of research and development. So you're 100% right. Banks, right? Financial institutions. And so again, I'm sure people are going, how do I get into it? I can't say enough. Join ISACA. Talk to Shamsi, right? Join ISC Squared, right? ISACA, they have the meetings. Now they're virtual, but soon enough, we're all going to be vaccinated. And you're going to be able to join those meetings, and you're going to meet great people. Start having those conversations, start doing that networking, right? If you take a virtual online course or a course, get to know the other students and have conversations with them, right? Start up relationships. If you see some of the things like InfraGard that have a meeting, right? Or US CERT is going to be meetings, dial into those, right? Then you get to meet people and get to have some conversations.
So the other thing that I would say, Kevin, if people have questions they want to get to you, they can email me and I'll forward them. Or if you have some place that you would like people to send, you can let us know. Is it easier if they send them to me and I get them to you?
Sure, you could do that, right? That would probably be the easiest way coming from you, right? Because a lot of email filters I've set up, they might block what people sent, right? So
as you can imagine, he's a very busy guy.
Right.
Well, no,
so
happy to help, right? Happy to help anyone get started in this field because it's a fantastic place. But it would probably just be easier if I get them from the folks, and then I can get back to people too.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, we wouldn't want to deluge you.
No, I'm happy to anything I can help anyone with, please. I'm on LinkedIn. Don't hesitate to reach out. I check it probably once a week. I get a lot of sales things, right? But just mention that you saw me on this thing, and I'm happy to reach out and see some and then have some conversations or some email exchanges or whatever we can do to get people started.
Right. So if people want to, they can email me at MassBay, and Henry just put my email address in the chat. And you can email me if you have a particular question. You just make sure you include your best email or your school email, and I'll send that on to Kevin. How's that work? I don't get enough email. I need fan mail like
Give me more. Right. No, this was
Well,
awesome.
Kevin, I don't know how to thank you. It's
Right.
been great, and
Yeah.
everyone, the participants have been great. So many great questions.
Yes. So we can all,
Yeah.
yes,
No,
Yeah.
no,
you know, virtually,
I want to applaud MassBay Community College and what work is being done there, right? They're
Yeah.
real
Thank you.
opportunities. I'm not just saying it, I've hired them and they're making big bucks. And so, you know, there's a lot out there to do. So this has been fantastic. I can't thank you guys enough. I really had fun.
Thank you. I
thank
do
you.
have one last question, though.
Of course.
This question I am never embarrassed or shy to ask. And it is for our students, and we are always happy to hear if you have internship opportunities for our
Absolutely.
students. Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's always my question.
Sure. Yeah, no, for sure, right? And we typically would have internships this summer. This damn, I can't say, you know, I'd use other words, but I can't because we're on
I
it. But,
know.
you know, the pandemic has just crushed the co-op and the internship experience for us, right?
Yeah.
Because I like, the only way for interns to learn, the only way for co-ops to learn is to be at the office, right?
Yes.
I make
Yes.
them go to every meeting. I make them take notes. I make them then, whatever they don't understand, which is a lot, I make them go back and do research, and they come back with the research. But that's the only way to learn, right? You know, from a virtual instance, it's really hard to do internships. That's been our, you know, we can certainly chat some more, and I can let you know what our internship plan,
Yeah.
co-op plan is for the summer if we're going to do one at Draper.
Great.
If
But,
I know that has been the biggest issue. I know. But thank you so much. We really, really appreciate you taking time
Fun.
talking
Thank
to
you.
us.
So much fun. So much fun. Thank you so
Thank you
much. for
so
the data.
much. It was
Okay,
great
great.
seeing you.
Great seeing you too. We'll
Yes.
catch up soon, I hope. All right.
We will.
Take care,
All
folks.
right. And thank
Thank you,
you.
everyone.
All right.
Thank you for
Bye-bye.
attending.
Really
Yes.
appreciate it. It was great.
Bye.